a lack of emotional depth, the type of features that go to make a cold-blooded killer.
Our task was the same no matter if it was O.J. Simpson, a gang member, a husband who's had a fight with his wife. Our task is the same, to resolve the situation peacefully and talk him into our custody.
Peter Weiriter was the police officer who had the delicate task of talking O.J. Simpson out of his car and into handcuffs. He had the support of most of the Los Angeles Police Department, but those who advised him how to deal with a suspected psychopath were vital.
Dr. Mahandi and I have been on numerous incidents together. He's the one who gives me a profile of the person we're dealing with. It allows me to stay away from certain subjects that might trigger the rise when I'm really trying to get a calming effect and downward, and that's what he really lends so much support to.
I see my role in these situations when I go out with Pete is in terms of helping the hostage negotiation team understand what motivates this person, and if it happens to be a psychopath, there are different things to do in that situation based upon that knowledge. Here you have an individual who we categorize as having some extreme need to have his ego stroked. There was a pretty big ego that we're dealing with, a person that's used to being put up on a pedestal by others, which some people might characterize as narcissistic. And towards that end, face saving is an extremely important issue. And anything that you can do to protect that person's ego from getting any more injured, that pride from being any more harmed, is what we would tend to support. And I think our task was to come up with a face-saving way for this individual with strong narcissistic and grandiose tendencies to give him an out that's going to save face.
And in fact, that is what we did.
There are many psychopaths in society that actually we know virtually nothing about. These are the psychopaths who don't necessarily commit homicide, commit serious violence, or even come to the attention of the police. They may be successful businessmen. They may be successful politicians. They may be successful academics. They may be successful priests. They exist in all areas of society.
There is a growing awareness that psychopathic behavior is around us in all walks of life. There are telltale signs in road rage incidents and in the violence that surrounds sport. But it's in the cut and thrust of the business world, an arena where traditionally ruthlessness verges on a virtue, that it's becoming increasingly worrying. Paul Barbiak, a personnel consultant, has had his own daunting experiences with psychopaths in suits.
I was brought into an organization to work on a team-building project. There had been some conflict amongst people in this particular team. And as I interviewed them, half of them identified one person as the source of the conflict. But the other half of the group thought this person walked on water, was absolute dream, and even future leader of the company. As I interviewed him, I found that I personally liked him very much. However, over time, he began to do things that were very bizarre. He would accidentally bump into a vice president, and then once he realized who it was, of course he really knew who it was, he would start praising this individual and fawning after him and ingratiating himself with the vice president. Others would see him with the VP and think that he had some sort of influence, which he really didn't have. Then he would take this perception in their mind and pretend that he did have secret information about what was going on in the organization. As he did this with different people, they were more willing to share information with him than they had because they thought that he was in the know. he discovered that one of the vice presidents was having an affair with one of the individuals in the office. He became very good friends with this individual, the young lady, and began to give her not only positive information about himself, because he was very gracious and charming, but he also spread negative rumors about his boss, the person who he really wanted to replace. I called Bob Hare. He sent me a copy of the psychopathy checklist. I was shocked by the results. This person came out with a 30 out of 40. I called Bob back, and he said to me that, yes, in fact, I had been dealing with a psychopath. He referred to this person as a subcriminal psychopath. I now refer to them as industrial psychopaths.
The notion of industrial psychopaths rising through the ranks to become captains of industry could mean that the character traits are a positive business asset.
If we take the Robert Maxwell example, it may be that he was able, through his energy and drive and lack of concern for other people, to develop a business effectively. But the damage he did to people along the way was quite considerable, very considerable. I find it hard to think of any clear examples where people have positively contributed because of their psychopathic traits.
Recognizing psychopaths early on may limit the damage they can cause, but their natural ability to be both manipulative and beguiling makes it difficult.
One of the things that the medical students with whom I've worked have noted is that they're shocked at how normal psychopaths look and how engaging they are. I do not know one clinician who hasn't at one time been taken by a psychopath. It happens to the best of people.
I knew that I had to get in touch with some deeper level of interconnection so that I could identify with humanity. We're all born with a conscience. We learn not to touch the stove because it's hot. Until we touch the stove and get burned, then and only then we don't touch the stove again. Compassion and empathy is a learned process. It starts off at a very early age.
They are very gifted at being able to convince you, I'm harmless, I did not do it, there's absolutely no way I'm responsible for this crime. These are very good actors.
They can read an audience or an individual as well as anyone that I've ever seen. While they appear to be speaking about themselves, they're constantly monitoring the facial expressions, the responses, and they will then tailor what they say to see if they can get the kind of response that they want.
My idol is John Lennon, and of course on the other side of the tracks we have Willie Nelson. He represents freedom in different ways. Love, peace, harmony, togetherness, connection with the polar bears, and freedom in general.
Culturally, we find some difference between the United Kingdom and North America. Our psychopaths tend to be less overt in their glibness, their superficial charm, and so forth. These things are not so obvious as they are in the North American prisoners, for example. We've done studies where Canadian prisoners and Scottish prisoners have been rated by Canadian and Scottish raters, and we can show that the Canadian prisoners are more extrovert, more glib, more superficial, more charming than our Scottish prisoners, who tend to be a bit dour, as we would say.
And of course the feathers represent freedom, and the leaf represents changing of the times. And just some little thing that I stuck together, and my philosophy is it's our life and we have a right to cry if we want to.
A lot of people, particularly those who tend to believe in the goodness of humanity, say, well, The problem with the psychopath is that he or she was not properly treated.